Have you ever had that quiet moment, late at night or early in the morning, where you catch yourself wondering, am I really okay on my own? Maybe nothing big has happened, no accidents, no hospital trips, but something just feels a little off. You can't quite explain it. Maybe you feel a bit slower than before. Or maybe your home, once so easy to move around in, suddenly feels like it's working against you. If any part of that feels familiar, you're not alone. Aging doesn't come with an instruction manual. No one tells us how to spot the signs that things are changing, not until something forces us to notice. But the truth is, your body and your environment are always giving you little clues. Quiet, early warnings that maybe, just maybe, living alone might not be as safe as it used to be. Now, before we go any further, let me say this clearly: this isn't about fear. This is about awareness. About empowerment. About listening to those signals early, before something serious happens. Because what we're talking about today isn't just about staying safe, it's about staying independent, in the way that truly matters. Let's start with something that often creeps in so slowly, we barely notice it: falls or near falls. Maybe it wasn't a dramatic tumble. Maybe it was just a moment where you felt unsteady stepping off a curb, where you caught yourself grabbing the wall while moving from the kitchen to the living room. You told yourself it was just a slip. Just the rug. Just the shoes. But let me ask you this: has it happened more than once? Falls are the #1 cause of serious injury for older adults. And what's tricky is that the body usually gives us small warnings before a fall actually happens: moments of dizziness, imbalance, slower reflexes. Sometimes even stiff joints or numbness in the feet. And the more we brush them off, the more we risk missing a bigger warning sign. There was a man I spoke with recently, Tom, 76, sharp as ever. He lived alone in the same home for over 40 years. One night, while getting up to use the restroom, he tripped over a shoe and hit the floor hard. Thankfully, he had his phone nearby and was able to call for help. But you know what he said after? I knew I was getting shaky. I just didn't want to admit it. It's not about being weak, it's about being smart. And sometimes, that means acknowledging when our balance or coordination just isn't what it used to be. That's the first sign. Not just falling, but almost falling. That gut feeling that you're not quite steady on your feet anymore. Now, let's talk about another sign, something a bit quieter, but just as serious. Forgetfulness. And not the kind where you misplace your glasses or forget what day it is. We all do that, and it's totally normal. What I'm talking about is forgetting important things, like whether you took your medication, or whether you turned off the stove, or if the door is locked. One woman I know, Janet, lives by herself and has always prided herself on being organized. But lately, she found herself second-guessing everything. She'd lie awake at night thinking, did I turn off the coffee pot? Or she'd realize at dinner time that she never ate lunch, simply forgot. It wasn't that she couldn't do things, it was that she wasn't remembering to. That kind of mental fog can creep in slowly. At first, it's little things. Then it's more serious things. And when you're living alone, those lapses can have consequences. Taking the wrong pills. Leaving the oven on. Missing a doctor's appointment. It's not a failure. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's a signal. One that says, hey, something might be changing here. And here's the hardest part: these signs don't always come with a warning bell. They show up quietly. A stumble. A missed meal. A forgotten date. And because you're strong, because you've always handled things on your own, you brush it off. You say, I'm fine. It was just a long day. But what if just a long day is becoming a pattern? The truth is, recognizing these early signs doesn't make you less independent. It makes you more in control. Because the sooner you notice, the sooner you can make smart adjustments, before your safety or health are seriously at risk. I want to say something here that's really important: acknowledging that you might need more help, or that living alone might not be ideal anymore, doesn't mean you failed. It means you're being wise, thoughtful, protective of the life you've built and the years ahead of you. So if you've found yourself reaching out to grab a countertop more often than before, if you've had a few close calls but didn't want to worry your kids, if you've caught yourself forgetting the basics and wondering, did I already do that today? Take a breath. Let it land. These might be your body's way of gently saying, it's time to look at this. Because living alone is about more than just being in your own space. It's about thriving in that space. Feeling secure, clear-headed, confident. And when those things start to fade, even just a little, that's when it's time to ask, what do I need right now to stay truly well? That might mean bringing in help, or talking to your doctor, or even considering new living arrangements. But the key is, you notice now. You act now. Not after a fall. Not after a scare. Now, when you still have choices. Let's take a moment and just recognize how powerful it is to even be having this conversation. To stop, reflect, and ask, am I still safe here, by myself? That's not easy. It takes courage to ask that question. But it takes even more wisdom to listen to the answers. And sometimes, those answers don't show up as big emergencies. They show up as whispers, like the feeling that everyday tasks are becoming harder than they used to be. Let's talk about one of the most overlooked warning signs of declining safety while living alone: difficulty with routine tasks. Now, I'm not talking about running marathons or building furniture. I mean the things that once felt automatic: making breakfast, doing laundry, tidying the kitchen, managing the mail. If these tasks start to pile up, take much longer than usual, or just feel overwhelming, that's your body and your mind giving you important feedback. One woman I knew, Marie, was always neat and orderly. Her home was spotless for years. But after a while, she started leaving dishes in the sink overnight. Then for a couple of days, laundry began to stack up. She found herself eating the same thing over and over because cooking just felt too tiring. Nothing huge happened. No fall, no major illness. Just a slow decline in energy, motivation, and clarity. It took her daughter noticing the state of the house to realize something wasn't right. And here's the tricky part: when you live alone, there's no one else to notice. No one to say, hey, are you okay? Or I've noticed things are slipping. So it's up to you to be your own observer. To be honest about how long it's taking to get through your day, how much energy things are requiring, and how you feel at the end of it all. Because when small daily tasks become stressful, frustrating, or even dangerous, like lifting heavy pots, bending down for laundry, or standing too long at the stove, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means your environment might no longer be working for you. And when your home starts requiring more effort than it gives back, that's something to take seriously. Another powerful sign, and one that's often brushed under the rug, is loneliness. And I mean real, quiet, creeping loneliness, the kind that doesn't always look sad, but settles into your daily routine in ways that are easy to miss. Maybe you go days without talking to anyone. Maybe you haven't had someone check in just to see how you are. Maybe you notice you've stopped calling people, or you feel like a burden when you do. You spend more time with the TV than you do with people. And over time, you stop realizing how much it's affecting you. Loneliness isn't just a feeling. It's a health risk. Research shows that prolonged social isolation can lead to cognitive decline, depression, poor sleep, and even higher risk of heart issues. When you're alone too often, your thoughts can get louder, heavier. You start doubting yourself. You start losing interest in the things that once brought you joy. And the hardest part? You may not even know how bad it's gotten until someone else points it out. Or until you find yourself staring out the window for hours, not because you're relaxing, but because you're waiting for something to happen. I once met a man, Harold, who admitted that after his wife passed, the silence in his home started to feel like pressure. He didn't want to go out. He didn't want visitors. But inside, he felt a kind of dull ache he couldn't name. He said, I thought I was fine. But I was just numb. And I didn't even know it. That numbness is one of the most dangerous warning signs because it disguises itself as just another quiet day. But over time, that quiet turns into disconnection. And without connection, it becomes harder and harder to care for yourself, mentally or physically. And that's what all of these signs have in common. They start small. A missed dose. A shaky step. An uneaten lunch. A quiet week. And unless we pay attention, they blend into the background. Until something serious wakes us up. But here's the thing, you can do something now. Right now. If any of this sounds like your life, that doesn't mean it's too late. In fact, the very fact that you're listening, thinking, wondering, that's your sign that you're ready to take care of yourself in a new way. Maybe that means asking someone to check in with you once a day. Maybe it's time to talk to your doctor about how you're feeling physically or emotionally. Maybe it's getting a little outside help with meals, cleaning, or errands. Or maybe it's even considering whether living alone is still the best fit for your life. Because independence isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about having the right support in the right place so you can live fully and safely without fear or strain. And sometimes, that support doesn't show up until you say, I think I need something different. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not giving up. You're adapting. And adapting is one of the strongest things a person can do. So if the steps feel shakier, if the days feel longer, if the silence feels heavier, know that those are not failures. They are signals. And listening to them is the first step toward protecting your peace, your health, and your future. Sometimes, the most important step we can take is the first one. Not a leap, not a big move, just a quiet, honest pause to say, I need to look at this differently. We've talked about the little signs. The stumbles that feel like nothing. The forgetfulness that sneaks in. The daily tasks that now take a little too much effort. The lonely hours that blur one day into the next. All of these moments are like pebbles. On their own, they don't seem like much. But over time, they start to pile up. And eventually, they form a wall between where you are and the life you want to be living. The good news is, you don't have to climb that wall alone. Let's talk now about what happens after the warning signs are recognized. What do you do if you realize, deep down, that living alone may no longer be the safest or healthiest choice? The first and most important thing is this: you don't have to have all the answers. You just need to start asking the right questions. What kind of support would make your daily life easier? Would a little help at home be enough, or would you feel more secure in a place where help is always nearby? What do you want your days to feel like, quiet and private, or active and social? These aren't easy questions. They come with emotion, with memories, with fears. But they also come with possibilities. If you want to stay at home, know that you're not limited to figuring it out on your own. There are more resources available now than ever before. Meal delivery, in-home health aids, fall prevention devices, medication reminders, even friendly phone check-ins. A few small changes could mean the difference between feeling uncertain every day and moving through your space with confidence. Maybe your son or daughter can help coordinate a few services. Maybe your doctor can recommend a local agency. Maybe a neighbor is willing to stop by once a week. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Sometimes, just knowing someone's looking out for you is the most comforting thing of all. But what if staying at home no longer feels right? What if you're tired of the weight of responsibility, the unpredictability, the silence? Then it's time to explore new chapters, not as a loss, but as a gain. Assisted living, senior communities, or shared housing with family or friends, they're not about giving up your independence. They're about redefining it. I once spoke with a woman named Alice who moved into an independent living facility after she slipped in her kitchen and spent hours on the floor, unable to reach her phone. She said the hardest part wasn't the injury, it was realizing how alone she'd felt during it. That moment changed everything. After her recovery, she toured a few communities and eventually moved into one that felt just right. She had her own apartment, her own furniture, her favorite recliner by the window. But now, she also had peace of mind. Meals were taken care of. Help was nearby. Friends were around. I thought I'd feel old here, she told me. But instead, I feel lighter. Stories like Alice's are powerful because they remind us that safety doesn't have to come at the cost of joy. That support doesn't mean surrender. It means making room for the next phase of life to be easier, not harder. And no matter where you land, at home with help, or in a new environment, what matters most is that you feel seen, cared for, respected. That you're not waiting for an emergency to push you into a decision, but instead, making choices while your voice is still strong and clear. Because your voice matters. If there's one thing I hope you take from this conversation, it's that noticing the signs isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of love. Love for yourself. For your future. For your well-being. It's saying, I matter enough to take action now, not later. You've lived through so much. Raised families. Built careers. Cared for others. Overcame heartaches and hard years. You've earned the right to live in a way that's not just safe, but fulfilling. Comfortable. Joyful. That's why this conversation is so important. Because it's not about fear, it's about freedom. The freedom that comes with knowing your needs and meeting them before life forces your hand. And maybe the most beautiful part? You don't have to figure it all out today. You just have to start. Ask yourself what's working. What's not? What makes you feel strong? What's making you feel unsure? And then, little by little, you adjust. You make a call. You have a conversation. You look at your options, not because you're failing, but because you're preparing. Because you care. Because you're brave enough to look ahead with open eyes. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story. Maybe you've already made this transition. Maybe you're in the thick of it. Maybe you're just now starting to wonder. Wherever you are, your words can help someone else feel less alone. So feel free to share in the comments. Let's support each other. And if you found this helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe. This channel is a space for honest conversations about aging well, living fully, and finding the strength to make hard decisions with grace. Here's to listening to the signs, to taking gentle action, and to living your best life, wherever that may be. Because you still have so much life ahead of you. Let's make sure it's lived with confidence, comfort, and care.